Hello everybody, today I am reviewing a blog post about 10 pros and cons of living in Flagstaff, Arizona. Now I myself have done a couple of videos on this channel about pros and cons and living in Flagstaff. Those were based on my own opinion after living there for a while, and also I had interviewed one of my good friends who is born and raised and currently living in Flagstaff, and that was the list that the two of us came up with in the previous videos. But in today's video I am reviewing this other blog article by a guy named Adam Burns, written in 2023, so that you can get an idea of another perspective, perhaps a man's perspective, about the pros and cons of living in Flagstaff, and see if any of the things jive up of what me and my friend Kristen said versus what this blog post said. So let's start with his first reason would be that there is a vibrant cultural scene, which I agree with, and a lot of that is cited because it is home of Northern Arizona University, one of the three biggest universities in the state. I am an alumnus of Northern Arizona University. I got my MBA there in 1994. It was a great place to go to school, but also living in Flagstaff at that time was fantastic. There are so many things to do, and actually since I graduated, that's 30 years ago, there's even more stuff going on, like Orpheum Theater, tons of restaurants, shopping, and of course all of the outdoor stuff. You're exposed to a lot of cultural differences in Flagstaff, and the vibrant cultural scene was the #1 pro that this author cited for living in Flagstaff. Now the other thing that he has, #2, was there are lots of community parks, which is true. The most popular park, Fort Hill, has 413 acres of land, camping, sports facilities. I love to go to Buffalo Park. I actually do have a video in this library about Buffalo Park where you could see the peaks, the Ponderosa Pines. It's a great place for walking around. There's also Wheeler Park, Bushmaster Park, Fox Glen Park, lots of places where you could just go walking and strolling, and a great place to go, and lots of places to hang out if you were living in Flagstaff. Now, the #3 pro to Flagstaff is you actually get to enjoy 4 seasons, which is fantastic, especially if you were originally living in Phoenix, because there seems to be 2 seasons. Summer, which lasts for 9 months, and then winter, which lasts about 3 months. But in Flagstaff, you have a beautiful 4 seasons. Summer is fantastic. In fact, every summer, I wish I still lived in Flagstaff. Fall is beautiful. You get to see all the changing colors of the leaves. In fact, a lot of people, years ago when I lived in Phoenix, we used to come up and park and camp in the fall so we could see the beautiful changing colors, the leaves dropping. So fall is beautiful, and then of course winter, you actually get snow. There's a lot of winter sports. There is a ski resort in Flagstaff. There's also a cross-country ski resort, so lots of winter things to do. And then of course the spring, you do get spring, even though it seems to be windy a lot in Flagstaff. 4 seasons is something that you'll really enjoy if you live there, especially if you're coming from Phoenix, where there's just one giant season of summer and then a couple of weeks of fall and winter. Now, an amazing food scene. Author cites that, an amazing food scene. There are lots of places to eat in Flagstaff. You got Italian food, you got American food, you got Chinese food, you got Mexican food. Lots of things to choose from if you're thinking of moving to Flagstaff, and a breathtaking natural community. So that is one thing fantastic about Flagstaff. It's very scenic. You have the San Francisco peaks, you've got big Ponderosa pine trees. Again, I mentioned Northern Arizona University. If you are a student, it's a fantastic opportunity to go to NAU, where you could live out in a surrounding of nature. You also have Lake Mary. Now, if you are not excited enough about all of the natural environment you have from Flagstaff, just go less than an hour south to Sedona, where you've got the Red Rocks. You've got Oak Creek Canyon, actually between Flagstaff and Sedona, is quite beautiful. If you decide to go north, you could go to Lake Powell. Oh, Lake Powell is my favorite lake in the entire state. So many natural things to do. There's Meteor Crater, there's the Lowell Observatory. tons of outdoorsy stuff to do if you decide to move to Flagstaff. Now the cons, here is the biggest con of all. Well, this is not his first one. The high housing cost and cost of living. So right now, I just checked 5 minutes ago what the median list price of a home for sale, single family home for sale in Flagstaff, and it is $950,000. Now that's only single family homes. It's going to be a little bit lower. In fact, let's just check what it is if you want to get a condo in Flagstaff. Median list price for a condo is $575,000. So realize that again is extremely high if you want to buy a home, and rent is not that much cheaper. So the high cost of living in Flagstaff, that is driven mostly by high housing prices. That's the number one con. This guy is at number 2. His number 1 is getting used to the thin air. If you especially are older and have respiratory issues, the air is much thinner at 7,000 foot elevation, so it could take you a little bit of time to get used to it. I've had some people that are older just can never get used to it. When I moved up there, it took maybe a day or two. And then you're like, oh yeah, this is, in fact, it's great if you're an athlete because you work out at 7,000 foot elevation and then you go compete in some cycling event in the Valley of the Sun and you kick everyone's butt because your lungs are just so strong at that point. So third issue is it's difficult to get a job in Flagstaff, which I also agree with if you're not in hospitality or possibly working for the university or working for Gore or possibly healthcare. Healthcare is actually a pretty good industry. If you don't work in one of those industries, you could have a hard time getting a job. There are about 70,000 residents now in Flagstaff, so again, being in a remote, finite geographical location and competing with all those people to find work could be a little bit difficult. Now, another con is that traffic can be a problem. Even though Flagstaff is not that big, there's not really a good infrastructure of roads. If you could take the Interstate 40 and kind of get around from one end of town to the other, that's good. But if you want to get into town or get through town, traffic can build up quite a bit, especially if there's an event like at Northern Arizona University, or you just want to go down Milton. Again, it can be, and even in the tourist season, but it just also unpredictable. You could just go out 2 in the afternoon and it's super busy traffic, and maybe not at 3 in the afternoon. Unpredictable, heavy traffic, and that can be a bummer when you're living in Flagstaff. This guy states that it could be kind of isolated. So that could be true. I've had people move up there. If you don't have other friends, it might seem a little bit lonely and isolated. Now, when I was in college, actually, I lived out at Mormon Lake, which is 30 miles away from Flagstaff, kind of a little bit of a suburb, very mountain town. Hardly anyone lived there. Like, I was totally isolated, but it was okay for me because I would just go into town to go to school, and that's where I would meet all my friends. But if you're a bit of an introvert, it's possible you would feel a little bit isolated if you lived in Flagstaff. So I'm going to just read the author's summary on the blog post. It says, to sum it up, should you move to Flagstaff, you'll have to consider all the pros and cons. Great weather and cultural scene make it quite attractive, but then the cost of living, low job opportunities are some major drawbacks. Therefore, moving to the town should be dependent on your own personal priorities, preferences, and of course your personality. If you really like the outdoors, you might be able to overcome some of the obstacles. But if you like the city life and being an extrovert, hanging out with people all the time, again, there are plenty of people to hang out with, but maybe it wouldn't be right for you. Now, again, if you are thinking of moving to Flagstaff, I do sell real estate there. My name is Dawn Dickinson. I am a licensed realtor in the state of Arizona. If you ever have a question about buying or selling a home in Flagstaff or anywhere in Arizona, give me a call or a text or an email. I will get back to you. My contact information is always in the description below. The channel is Living in Northern Arizona. I post videos every single week about the Northern Arizona towns and about real estate. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you do, please consider giving me a thumbs up. Consider subscribing to the channel, and I hope to see you back here again next week on my next video.